Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Helt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Ash Ahluwalia, and he is the head of Social Security planning at One Team Financial and one of the nation's leading experts in retirement income strategies. With nearly 30 years of experience, Ash has helped thousands of retirees maximize their Social Security benefits, often their largest retirement asset. He was named National Social Security Advisor of the Year, and Ash is a sought-after speaker and contributor to Wall Street Journal, Barron's, and U.S. News and World Report. Ash, welcome.
Thank you, Gary. It's a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate you spending some time with us. I know Social Security is a big topic for everybody. Right now, it's a big topic because of the big, beautiful bill. And I'll say some misinformation that is out there that will get cleared up today. So give us your background, Ash. What made you decide that, hey, Social Security is where I want to be the expert?
Yeah, absolutely. So similar to you, I'm a recovering accountant. So I did my CPA in Canada where I grew up. I went to the Wharton School of Business for my MBA. I'm a certified financial planner, but nowhere do they teach Social Security. Right. So since I've been focused on retirement planning for 30 years, Social Security comes up, right? At some point, you have to make a filing decision on it. And I started calling all the smart CPAs I know, tax attorneys, other financial planners to see what they knew about Social Security. They didn't know anything about Social Security. I said, how is this possible? It's such a ubiquitous benefit. Everybody has it, no experts. And I realized, you know what? I'll take a weekend and learn it. Well, good luck with that. There's 2,700 rules, right? And most couples have over 500 possible filing scenarios. And they basically know one, maybe two. When they stop work, they retire, they go to Social Security, find out how much they get, or they may know if they delay the start of their benefits, they'll get a higher benefit amount. But because of those two simplistic approaches, over 90% of people collecting Social Security are getting less money than they're eligible to receive. So I ended up getting 2 certifications in Social Security planning. I won some awards. I'm regularly in the press. I was in Forbes a few weeks ago, Kiplinger's, Investors. I mean, it's the top, 10,000 people a day, Gary, turn 65. And they're all on the doorstep of retirement, and they're scared to death. They have no idea if they've enough money to finance a 20, maybe 30-year retirement. Meanwhile, they have one of the richest pensions ever created in Social Security, and they know nothing about it. And I will say this, for a typical middle-income couple, let's say they retire at 66 and live to 86, they had 20-year retirement. They're going to get about 1.4 million from Social Security. And I would say the majority of my clients will get well over 2 million. I have clients collecting over 100,000 a year in Social Security benefits. It's an unbelievable pension.
That's crazy.
And everybody, nobody, when we do retirement planning, we're like, send us all your statements, investment accounts, insurance. They send us everything but their Social Security statement.
Right.
And I'm like, I need that too. And because of the complexity in the program, you try to find advice, and the one place you can't go is Social Security. They're actually prohibited from offering advice. So now what do? Right? Social Security is not going to help you. People aren't experts in it. It's tough to be an expert in everything, right? So, I do a deep dive on the Social Security, and everybody's looking for the short answer. Is it better to take it early? Is it better to delay? There is no cookie cutter answer, right? You really have to customize Social Security as part of an overall retirement income plan. And I'll give you a couple examples. When I do a Social Security fact finder, I ask questions like, do you own life insurance? And they're like, well, why do you care if I own life insurance? Well, if you have a lot of life insurance, I don't have to focus on maximizing the survivor benefit Social Security. If you don't have life insurance, that may be important. What other investments do you have? If all your money's jammed into retirement accounts, then the most taxed assets that you have, right? A traditional IRA, 401k. Well, maybe we should be looking at Roth conversions for some of that. If that's relevant, then the timing of the Social Security could come into play, right? Because maybe we don't want to increase your income if we're going to do Roth conversions. For wealthy people, I will tell you this, that I have some very wealthy clients, 30 million to 100 million, and they all have estate tax exposure.
Mhm.
If you ask somebody who's wealthy about Social Security, commonly you hear two things. It's like, well, what do I care? It's not that much money. Clearly, it's relevant. Uh, my CPA, my financial, everybody's telling me, don't take it. You're only going to pay tax on it. Delay it to 70, max it out, then take it. I tell them do the exact opposite. Take it as soon as you can. So why would a wealthy person who doesn't need it take it? Well, just because you don't need it doesn't mean you shouldn't take it, right? I have clients who can, they have other assets and they're like, well, should I take Social Security now? Later? Again, you got to customize. But for a wealthy person, if you're worth more than $30 million, and I'm just using this as an example, your biggest issue is not income tax, it's estate taxes.
Right.
I tell them, look, if you're going to get $2 million over 20 years in Social Security, if you take it early, let's say you get 70,000 a year as a couple before tax, after tax 45,000. Take the 45,000 a year, gift it into an ILET, it'll buy $2.5 million of life insurance. Now I've converted a potential income stream into a guaranteed 2 million income estate tax-free asset. That's relevant. So, all right, so your clients aren't worth 30 million, let's say. The strategy is still relevant for clients worth a lot less because, again, you might want some leverage. People need long-term care in retirement. Maybe it makes sense to draw on Social Security, fund some long-term care insurance to protect all of your other assets. So it's just another retirement asset that you have, and you have to say, what's the smartest and best use of those dollars? If my client, one spouse has a health issue, that life expectancies are shorter. Well, obviously that filing strategy can be very different than a couple where they both live into their 90s, right? There's maybe they're working. Small business owners, my goodness, they have so many more options than, let's say, W-2 workers, because if they're a married couple in a business, you can reallocate income from one spouse to another. So you might be able to start one spouse's benefit earlier, delay the other spouse, maybe trigger spouse benefit. So, I mean, it just literally goes on and on and on. But you definitely want to find out what your Social Security benefits are, put it under a microscope, make sure you're getting all of your eligible benefits, and then integrate it into an overall retirement income plan. But it's surprising for people to realize just how valuable this asset is. And they don't think of it as a pension. If they have $1 million IRA and they, God forbid, get hit by a bus, the heirs get the $1 million, but the Social Security ends. So it's a guaranteed lifetime pension, but it's a guaranteed lifetime potential pension. So you have to risk affect the cash flows. And if I could, I just want to share this one concept with you because I say, if your listeners just remember one thing today, remember this. Of all those 500 possible filing strategies, the strategy that pays the most amount of combined lifetime benefits is never the best. Now you say, wait a minute. I thought that's why
Yeah.
people engaged you to find them the most money. I
Right.
say, look, I still show it to them. And I say, look, there's no way to get more money. Here's the filing strategy that pays the most. And let's say that, just to simplify it, let's say that has both spouses delaying to 70 to max out their benefits and then they live to 90. But if I have another strategy where one takes it at, say, 68 and a half and the other at 67 and 3 months, and maybe over their joint lifetime, they get 90,000 less. Well, why would 90,000 less be better? Well, who cares? 90,000 in 25 years, what's that worth in today's dollars? The net present value of those two payment streams are identical. So if they're worth the same, which one's better? Well, the one that pays you more upfront is better because you're more likely to get those checks. So
Right.
my objective is to find what I call a sweet spot. I think every couple has like this perfect filing strategy for them and their situation. And that is, how do I get you the most amount of money up front by the time you would have gotten your first checks under the max strategy without leaving too much money on the table down the road? And that you only do that by running side-by-side cash flow comparisons. So my software runs about 567 scenarios for a couple. And I look at all of them and I'm like, all right, here's the one that pays the most. What's another one that has the same value today, but if I can get my clients 200 grand by the time they would have got their first check, that's a better payout stream. And so it's like, it's not about should I take money from my retirement accounts first and defer Social Security or do the opposite. It's find the optimal filing strategy for Social Security and then supplement the income you need from your other buckets of money. And that's how I go about it.
I mean, it's interesting because you're saying, hey, there's like 500 different strategies. And again, like you ask most people, and there may be, they're thinking, okay, if there's two of us, there's maybe six strategies because of
That's right.
early on time or 70, and then okay,
Later, full
two of us,
retirement. Yep.
what do we do? Um, I find the other piece that's interesting too. You talk about the spousal benefit, the lifetime benefit, and things like that, where it's like, okay, the life insurance does come into play, or if it doesn't come into play. And I think a lot of people probably aren't thinking, hey, I can use this to fund these other things, where
Yep.
most of the time people are just looking at it, oh, I just need, income. Uh,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it is very complicated and based on working with clients, and them calling Social Security, you're 100% right. It's like they are no help at all. And it's
No.
like, rightfully so. They're not supposed to, but that's definitely something that you need to find somebody that's outside of Social Security like yourself to be able
Yep.
to do this. Um, One of the things that has come out of the big beautiful bill that we hear everybody talking about is that Social Security is not taxable anymore for seniors. Can you talk on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, a few weeks ago, I was published in Forbes magazine specifically about Social Security and the Big Beautiful Bill. So I address it. So if any of your listeners want a copy of the article, I can send that out. So the thing is, nothing in the Big Beautiful Bill changed how Social Security is taxed. Okay, nothing changed. People think that nothing changed. Okay, Social Security, to determine how much you have to include in your federal taxable income, you have to calculate provisional income. So that's your adjusted gross income plus half your Social Security plus muni bond interest. Okay, if you add it all up, if you're married filing jointly and your provisional income's over 44,000, you have to include 50 or 85% of your Social Security benefits in your federal taxable income. It's not an 85% tax. You include 85% of your Social Security as ordinary income. If it's between 32 and 44,000, includes 50%, and under 32, you don't pay any tax. So that did not change. What changed was for over the next 4 years, starting with this year, there's a senior deduction, right? So if you're married filing jointly and your adjusted gross income's under 150,000, if you're 65 or older, you get a $6,000 deduction. So if both spouses are over 65, whether they're collecting Social Security or not, that's irrelevant. If you're 65 or older and your AGI is under 150, you get the 6,000. If it's over 250, there's no deduction. And between 150 and 250, there's a phased out partial deduction. Could that deduction result in your provisional income dropping below those levels? In that scenario, it could potentially reduce the amount of your Social Security that's subject to taxation. The vast majority of people, though, will have a provisional income over 44,000 as a couple, and so it's not going to drop them below. Okay, so they're conflating two separate things. The senior deduction has nothing to do with Social Security. Maybe you're not even collecting Social Security. You're going to get the deduction, right? So one has nothing to do with that. So this notion that people are running around saying, "Oh, this is great. Next year I don't have to pay tax on my Social Security," for most people, none of
Right.
that changed. So, I mean, I don't want to get into the politics, obviously, but the point is, people are busy and they don't have time to sort through the details, right? They're like, "Oh, I guess it's not taxable anymore." Yeah. So I think a lot of people are going to be unpleasantly surprised.
Yes, yes, yes. I agree. I've talking with some clients already and tried to explain this to them. And they're like, no, I'm being told that Social Security is like, no, you're being told the wrong thing. And
Yeah, yeah,
try to go through that with them. Um, because there are so many variations to how someone can take Social Security and all the rules and things like that. What are some of the costly mistakes that you see people taking or making when it comes to either taking or not taking Social Security?
Yeah, well, I think, well, the first one is they really aren't paying any attention to it. They haven't even got an account on the website to print a statement out because they stopped mailing statements. So you want to make sure Social Security has the right information on you. Sometimes they have the wrong earnings history, right? And so your benefit's not right. So you want to look at on the, it's the ssa.gov.gov. Get on that website, create an account. Now you have access to your statement and you can see what the earnings history is, et cetera. So that's the first thing is be aware what your eligible benefits are. When you do Social Security planning as a couple, that couple could be a married couple, a divorced couple. It could be a widow, widower, right? Because these are all different triggers for benefits. So, and I always, when I do presentations, I say when it comes to Social Security planning, men are the worst. Okay, they're terrible, and the reason is a man. And I'm generalizing, obviously, but a man looks at his benefit amount, and says, "Geez, at 66, I get this amount. It's less, but I get more checks. If I wait to 70, I get a higher check. For fewer years, my break even's like 78 to 82." But they don't understand their check could live on 10 years after they're dead as a survivor benefit for their spouse. So you always have to look at it as a couple. So they don't plan as a couple, they plan as two separate individuals. The other thing is they don't know what they're eligible for. So just to use a spousal benefit example, if I have a client and he's a doctor and he's got a maximum benefit amount, his wife worked for a few years, but she stayed home, raised children, her benefit's much lower. Well, if his intention is, well, I'm going to keep working until I'm 70, I'm making good money, I'll just defer and max out my benefit. Well, every year he delays, he's also leaving free money on the table, right? Because in order for that spousal benefit to get paid, he has to be collecting. So at some point, you've got to decide, geez, is it better for me to file earlier so I trigger a 50% benefit amount for my spouse? Or should I delay to get a higher check and give up 4 years of that extra money? So you never want to leave free money on the table
Right.
if you can avoid it. And they don't have to file at the same time. That's the other thing is, oh, when I retire, we'll both go in. No, maybe it makes sense for one spouse to file earlier, one spouse to file later. They may have been divorced. And they're like, well, I can't collect off my ex because, he got remarried. Well, that's his problem. You can still collect off him. It's not as long as you didn't get remarried. And then there's some nuances like, if you get, I had a client whose former spouse passed. She's 59. She was about to get remarried. And I said, no, 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 no. You have to wait another year. Because if you get remarried now, when you're 60, when you could have collected a survivor benefit off your former spouse, you won't be eligible to anymore. But there's an exception to the rule. If you remarry after age 60, if your former spouse passes, you can still collect even though you got remarried. Social Security is not going to tell you that. I mean, there's all these crazy little nuances. So I would say uh, people think it's simplistic, right? It's like, oh, I can either file early, full retirement, or later, but every single month is a different benefit amount because the approximately 8% per year increase in benefits accrues monthly. And so every month is a different benefit amount for each spouse. Okay. And then you have to integrate it into an overall retirement plan. People look at Social Security as a separate decision point. And I'm saying, no, no, no. It's what's important to you. Just to trigger off what I said for the high net worth person who uses Social Security to buy life insurance for estate planning. I had a client. She was a divorced woman, 63, retired from Johnson & Johnson. She has a daughter who she likes and a granddaughter who she loves. So she says, I want to make sure if I'm not around, that my granddaughter's taken care of. I'm going to move a $500,000 for assets into a trust for her benefit, just so I know she's taken care of. I said, don't do that. Let's get Social Security to pay for it. So I said, let's start your Social Security early. We'll use a portion of your Social Security benefit, $10,000 a year. It'll fund $1 million life insurance policy in a trust for your granddaughter. Now you can spend all your money. Whether you're around 1 month or 20 years, there's $1 million tax-free dollars available for your granddaughter. So again, looking at the particular situation, how does it fit in? For women, women live longer than men.
Mhm.
Statistically, that happens. I
Right.
say go to any nursing home, 3 out of 4 people are women, right? The men are gone. So I say long-term care is critical in your overall planning. So long-term care can be expensive, but maybe you can optimize the value of your Social Security by repositioning some of those dollars to fund long-term care insurance to protect that tail end of retirement. People think as you get older in retirement, you spend less money. That's true unless you have a health event, right?
Right.
And then it gets crazy expensive. So using Social Security to protect your other assets by getting long-term care insurance can be important. So again, legacy planning, having liquidity on the first death. When one spouse passes, as you know, the tax rates go way up, right? Because now you're a single person, the survivor.
Yep.
So one Social Security check ends and your taxes go up. So again, you have to provide for that using Social Security to get some liquidity. Maybe life insurance is the answer. There are other kinds of savings, but you have to plan for those events. So don't just look at Social Security as a separate decision. Look at it as a part of an overall, how does it fit into your overall retirement plan?
Right. Uh, you We have many listeners of the show that are business owners, and many of them that I've spoken to, um, a lot of them, their CPAs have told them to have lower salaries so they don't have to pay the payroll taxes. And I always look at it as like, well, if you're doing that, you're not paying into Social Security. Can you talk about that and how that, saving, I'm going to say saving a couple of dollars now may be costing them later?
Yeah, well, your benefit amount is based on your highest 35 years of indexed earnings. So this is Social Security taxable earnings. So if you've been working hard to keep your taxable income low, you're also reducing your potential Social Security benefit. Unlike IRAs and 401ks, you can outlive those, but you can't outlive a pension. So Social Security not only is a pension, it's one of the richest pensions because it also has cost of living increases. You never see that in a pension. They're always fixed. Social Security increases I mean, 2, 3 years ago, it went up 8.7%.
Right.
And that's a permanent increase in your check amount. So when you're looking at how to allocate income, if both, let's say there's two spouses in the same business, as you know, once the person's wages are above $176,100, like there's no more Social Security taxes to pay. Medicare, you pay on all your income, but not on Social Security. So sometimes repositioning income from one spouse to another can save you on Social Security taxes because they pay as an employer and an employee, right? So let's say the husband is paying himself 170,000 and the wife's paying herself 80. Well, maybe we should pay the wife 40 and pay the husband the extra 40 because we're going to have to pay 12.4% Social Security taxes, right? We're going to save.
Right.
Reducing the one spouse's income may create opportunities where they can actually, the lower income spouse can file earlier and start her lower check. In my scenario, it's a woman, a lower check. The typically older husband can defer and max out their check. So we're coordinating one check to another, saving on Social Security taxes. So yes, the funding of your income will determine what your Social Security benefit is. Reducing that pension is crippling, really, for a lot of people. And think of this scenario, the husband was a max earner, had the high Social Security benefit. The wife had a very low benefit. And then they get divorced. The husband's walking away with a big Social Security check, and the wife has practically nothing.
Hmm.
And you can't carve up a Social Security check in a divorce, right? You have to
Yeah.
negotiate everything.
Right.
So I think as accountants, they do a great job of finding ways to cut taxes, but you have to step back a bit and say, well, does that really make sense here, right? Isn't it maybe makes sense to maybe pay one spouse more, or how you allocate the income so that they have a richer pension when they go into retirement? Because people don't have pensions anymore, right? They have 401ks and IRAs, but for the most part, pensions are gone.
Right. Right. 100%. Um, when somebody, I guess, when should someone start the discussions about Social Security? How far out from, whatever age is
Yeah.
it that they really should start talking about this and looking at this? Because again, like you said, I mean, if there's over 500 strategies, I mean, you know,
Right. The sooner the
besides
better,
talking
right?
to you, I mean, it's like, so really, when should somebody start talking about this?
No, that's a great question. So most of my clients reach out to me between the ages of 60 and 70. All right. But more and more, I'm getting clients in their mid to late 50s
Mhm.
because the Social Security discussion is really a retirement planning discussion, right? What you want to know is if you're 58 and you might want to retire at 60, 62, 65, whatever the age is. Uh, I like to have all my options on the table. In other words, if they come to me after age 62, let's say they came to me at 65. I said, well, you know what? Your best strategy was for your wife to file at 62, but we can't go back because there's no backdating
Right,
prior to full retirement age. Whereas if they get to me before then, I'll know whether or not that's an option for them and optimal. So ideally, late 50s, early 60s is the best. And that's for either spouse. Because if there's an age difference, if the husband is 62 and the wife is 55, well, there's a decision point for the husband, right? So even though the wife is can't file for 7 years, the point is we may need to figure out whether or not the husband should be filing now or not. If they're still working, it's probably going to be deferred anyway. But I think it's an eye opener just to see what those projected cash flows look like because they're really not even thinking about Social Security, right? And I say to a client, and let's say I have a client and they're both attorneys, and they get to me when they're late 60s because they're both attorneys, they're still working and they like what they do, right?
right.
And they'll say, well, we don't need the money, we're working, we can afford to wait. Let's just wait to 70 and max it out. And by the way, a couple like that, they're going to get about 120,000 a year combined in Social Security benefits, right? It's like 5,000 a month
Wow.
each. It's big money. But the sweet spot was probably 2, 3 years earlier. Because whether they need the money or not, they could have already banked 2, 300 grand and delaying to 70 to try to get 90 grand more in 25 years is a complete waste of time, right? They've transferred the risk from Social Security to themselves. Now they have to live a long life to get that money back. So my point is the earlier the better. So late 50s, early 60s is ideal. But I've had people come to me at 69 and 10 months and they said, I have no idea, Ash, why I'm even talking to you. I said, what's your plan? He goes, what do you mean? I turned 70 in 2 months. I said, worst thing you could do. He said, really? I said, yeah. He said, what's better? I said, well, I'll do analysis. But I ended up showing them that if he backdated 6 months and his spouse who was already collecting could backdate spousal benefits, I said, you'll get 40,000 more by the time you would have turned 70, and you're only giving up 18 grand in 20 years. Who cares?
Wow.
Take the extra 40 grand. So even in that scenario where I had literally nothing to work with, they're
Yeah.
still saying, I've never had a client get it right here. I'm
Oh,
just going to say that straight out. Not
I believe
one.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Ash, there's going to be a lot of listeners that are listening to this and saying, "Oh, my financial advisor's got this." Talk about that because obviously, I've learned more in the 25 minutes that we've been on the phone than I've learned in all my years about, Social Security and the nuances of it. Uh,
Yeah.
what is it that if the financial advisor or their firm says, "Hey, we have a Social Security expert or whatever," um, what are the credentials? What is it that we should be looking for to know that they truly know what they're talking about, and it's not just somebody within the firm that they've designated as a Social Security person?
Yeah, no, it's good. So many quote financial advisors are really wealth managers, right? They manage a portfolio, but they're not actual financial planners. They don't do detailed retirement income planning, which is what we focus on. They may have an awareness of the basic Social Security rules,
Right.
but they can't do a deep dive on it. They haven't got specialized training. Like I have the NSSA, the National Social Security Association certification, and I won the Advisor of the Year award. So that's by somebody who spends all their time focused on Social Security planning. So in my experience, when I say, look, I'm not looking to disrupt any relationship. Obviously, you're happy with them and they're managing your money, and that's good. But this is not to take away from what they're doing for you. This is to enhance what they're doing.
Hmm.
Once we do a detailed analysis, you can give them those cash flow recommendations that I'm telling you. Here's your optimal filing strategy. Now they can integrate that into their planning for you. I've had financial planners call me to do the Social Security piece for their clients. They said, look, we can do everything else, but we can't do this. We want to use you as a resource to do the planning. So, but in my experience, when I look at a client's retirement income plan from a wealth advisor, I find that they're either taking it at full retirement age or they're taking it at 70. Like there's one or two or three spots. There's no thought gone into how do I optimize it? What benefits may I be eligible for? None of that. Uh, and so it's threatening. I have to be frank, when a financial advisor says you're talking to somebody else, it can be. But I think the better advisors want to help their clients and say, you know what, this isn't an area I specialize in. We
Right.
don't have that. I did a national webinar for all the wealth managers at Bank of America a few months ago. All of them. Now think about it. They got smart, certified
Oh,
financial
yeah.
planners, tax attorneys. They've got a team of people, but this is such a unique niche that they will say, look, this isn't an area where, we can do a deep dive on. But it's important to our clients. You care about your clients. This would be a good thing to, you know, get a focus on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, Ash, we're definitely going to have to do an Ash 2.0 with you on this because again, there is so much
Yeah,
stuff that I
there
wanted
is.
to kind of get, big picture out here and we can do another session and have
Sure.
a little bit more in detail and stuff. But what have I not asked you that you wish I had?
Well, I mean, I think what you just said is relevant. It's such a big topic. You almost have to say, let's have a session just on divorce benefits.
Right.
Let's just have it on survivor benefits. Let's have a benefit on, child benefits, child and care benefits. Let's do one on how do you get to that sweet spot? How do you optimize? What's involved in those calculations? How do you integrate Social Security as part of an overall plan? What should a high net worth person do regarding Social Security planning? So there are, subtopics in there. So I can't obviously, I will say this, when I do a 2-hour continuing education to CPAs, at the end of it, I said, if I did my job right today, you know less now than when I
Yeah.
started. Okay. Because now you know how much you don't know, right?
Right,
And
right,
that's always a shock. Yeah.
right.
So that's what I would say.
So, Ash, if people like what they hear and they do want to get you involved, in their planning and stuff, how can they reach out to you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I always offer anybody a 15-minute complimentary consultation. They can tell me their situation, ask me whatever questions they want, and I will help them. I only charge a fee if they engage me to do a customized plan for them. So they can reach me directly actually on my cell phone, 973-202-1212, or they can email me at ash at one team financial, ONETEAM financial.com. So ash at oneteamfinancial.com. And I have clients all over the world. I was talking to a woman in Israel this morning about Social Security planning. So when
Nice.
people find out I exist, they reach
Oh
out to
yeah.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. Ash, I really appreciate your time. This was a great discussion. I know hopefully people learned from this and
Yeah.
I'm sure are really starting to, question, hey, what do I need to do? When do I need to do
Yep.
it? And I think that uh, this is a great discussion point, especially with what's going on with the big beautiful bill and other
Yep.
things. So this is a great starting point for us, and I really appreciate your time
My
today.
pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you, Gary. My pleasure. All
Sure.
right. Talk again.
This week, my guest was Ash Ahluwalia, and he is the head of Social Security planning at One Team Financial. And I'll see you guys next week.